So in this video, I will give you a very short overview of some retouching techniques in Google Photos. By retouching, I am implying that we will do some post-production work on our images. And know that there are several software out there that you could use, such as Photoshop, Lightroom. But since Google Photos is free and rather powerful, we will use it for this demo. If you have a Mac, you could also use Photos. If you have a PC, Microsoft's photo app is also pretty good for basic retouching. But Google Photos goes a little step further, perhaps. So let's use this one, and it has the extra advantage of working on several platforms, not just a Mac or a PC. So I've loaded this photo. It's a ready-to-camp site in Gatineau Park, so you can rent this tent. And I took the photo in the winter. We can actually see snow. So if we click here on the eye, we'll get more information about the photo. So it confirms that the photo was taken on February 6th. Of course, as we will see in the coming weeks, you have to be careful when using metadata from a photo because metadata can be modified. In this case, though, I know that the details here are reliable since I took the photo. We have the file format. HDR stands for high dynamic range. That's a special kind of parameter within my camera, which will take a photo with highlights and shadows. Generally speaking, in a journalistic context, you have to be careful with HDR photos. They tend to be frowned upon because it's akin to using techniques that go beyond merely adjusting a photo, but for now, it will do the trick, and it was taken with my cell phone, so let's not worry about that. But keep in mind that when doing photojournalism, you have to follow some pretty strict guidelines in terms of ethics. The photo was taken with an LG cell phone. We have the aperture here, so 2.2. Generally speaking, on a cell phone, the aperture is fixed, so you cannot change it. A speed of 1/174th of a second, and we have a focal length of 3.7 millimeters, and we have an ISO of 50. And then it shows that the photo was taken in Gatineau Park. The closest address was the Gatineau Park Visitor Center. The photo was actually taken in the Lac Philippe area. Again, doesn't really matter, but Google Photos lets you see some of the details attached to a photo, and that's hidden in your Photos code in the file. So I will click here, and now we will click on the edit icon here. So that's our photo. We could simply use the filters here, so say auto. It looks pretty good, but again, that's frowned upon. In journalism, you should do your own edits. So I will just undo edits, and I will click here on basic adjustments. I can click here to get all of the different options for lighting. So I could come here and it will do overall adjustments, or I can go manually. So my exposure looks pretty good, but I could bring it up a little bit, not too much, because I don't want to clip the snow, which is already properly exposed. I could play with my contrasts a little bit, not too much. If you play with highlights, you will be able to bring up your highlights or kill them. So look at the snow. Now it's pretty dark. Now it's overexposed. So I will come here, and you can do a similar thing with the whites slider, but it will only affect whites, whereas highlights will affect everything that is kind of like lit. And if you were to use shadows, you would affect the shadows. With the blacks, it's similar, but it will only affect the blacks. So let's play with our highlights. So I can bring up the snow a little bit, but now it's starting to be a little bit overblown. So let's try something different. I can combine different options. So I will reduce my highlights, And I will bring up my whites a little bit. Looks pretty good. Again, we're not aiming for perfection, and it really depends how well calibrated your monitor is. So don't worry too much if the photo doesn't look quite perfect on your end. I'm just showing you basic editing skills here. I will bring up the shadows a little bit, but now the photo is starting to be a little too flat, so I could enhance my contrast, but by doing so, I'm also darkening my whites and whatnot, so let's enhance my blacks a little bit. There we go, and you see the barbecue here looks a little darker. That's not too bad. There is the vignette. You wouldn't normally use that in journalism unless you are creating, say, a special image for a feature-length piece, and in that case, you should be transparent and explain that the photo was edited. So we'll leave that here. Then let's come to the colors. We could enhance the saturation a little bit. That's too much. And now it's black and white. So let's boost it a little bit. We could play with the warmth. So that's the color balance. So here it's too blue. Here it's too orange. As it was, it's a little blue. So let's boost it a little bit. Now my snow looks pretty white. So that's good. Don't touch the tint, but you know, that's what it does. Same thing with skin tone. In this case, it doesn't make a big difference. It will kind of like change the color of this tan tarp. So leave the skin tone as is. And you could enhance the deep blue. That will generally make your sky bluer. But if I do it here, my sky will kind of stay the same. But because the sky is reflecting on the snow is turning blue. So let's leave that here too. Then we have pop, which will kind of enhance the contrast between midtones. So I could bring the pop a little bit, but be careful. Now it's looking like almost cartoonish. So just a little bit. Looks good. All you have to do now is to click on Done. It will generate a new image. And you can click on the three little dots here for more options. And you can download your photo and or download the original. So in a nutshell, that's how you would go about modifying, retouching an image with Google Photos.